We got speed. We got size. We got decent depth.
Amen.
And most of all, we got fucking speed.
Amen.
And so,
have you said speed yet?
No, but they are really fucking fast.
Amen.
And I think
and we have a guy to get them the ball.
And we got a guy to get them the ball. They're all just getting started.
Hallelujah.
We're gonna have some impressive wide receivers this year.
Yep. Pass me the Kool-Aid, brother.
45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's gonna go. Holy cow.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. He gets better and better. Keep it JPP. Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
Trying to confuse everybody with my beer choices.
That one doesn't quite
no, it doesn't
quite
really do it.
That's Vegas left those in my fridge.
This is not my first choice.
Just in case you were wondering, he's not also a Miller Lite fan. I think that was the question the other day. I can't tell if he likes Miller Lite or Busch Light.
Well, I have Mick Ultras, Busch Light, Miller Lite. Sometimes I have Coors, Banquet beers.
Don't you just like the kind that has alcohol in it?
Usually, I'm a fan of the one that has alcohol in it.
That was the way I responded. Was like, he's not even necessarily a beer fan. He's just an alcohol fan.
Yeah.
You put a beer in front of me and I don't drink it, take me to the hospital.
It happens occasionally, but usually that's like after you get back from Vegas or something.
It's if I'm just way too hungover.
Yeah. We are looking a deep dive into our position groups. Not deep dive into the groups themselves, but actually just how they rank out against each other. Mm-hmm. We wanted to kind of get a feel for the strengths of the team, what we are kind of concerned about, the weaknesses. I know Jed has some concerns about this team, and I think this is a good time to share them.
I have some questions.
Concerns.
Yep.
You haven't used the phrase "I'm scared."
No,
like you did a couple years ago about the defensive line.
There might be two of these position groups that I might be a little scared of.
So we all did our own list. We don't know how each other rank out here, but we're gonna start it off and kick it off kind of the way we did when we were listing our top 5 players to watch out for.
You say, are we going from the bottom to the top? Or?
So we're starting off with Matt. I want to hear what your number 8 is.
My number 8.
Your number 8.
Okay, my number 8 comes strictly because we don't have that many of them, and we didn't see that great of performance out of them last year. I'm going tight ends.
Tight ends at the bottom?
At the bottom.
I am surprised.
I'm going to say one thing specifically here, and that is if Carter Nelson gets in the game and just destroys people, that will change this quite a bit.
Okay.
What if he's not a tight end?
Lily lists him as a tight end.
We kind of already talked about that, though.
There was a couple of people
like being eligible for multiple positions in fucking fantasy baseball. Just because he's coming into the season as a tight end doesn't mean he's going to play tight end.
There was a couple people that were questioning, like, what if he doesn't stay at tight end? But we'll find out later. But
if we could use him at tight end, that's where I expect him to play, and I think he could play very well there. But I got to see more out of Fedoni to think he has good hands this year, and we haven't seen that much performance out of anybody else. So
I think I saw enough in the spring game to make sure that they're not my bottom.
Yeah,
I just have more questions about some of the groups here.
You'll find out where I have tight ends and why I'm so shocked at them being last. But yeah, not last.
So who's your last?
I have running backs as my last spot.
Ooh.
Just because all of the questions at injuries, there's just too many damn injuries with the top of the list with Gabe Irvin and Ramir Johnson, who has the most snaps or at least the most experience and all that stuff. A lot of question marks with Dante Dowdell just because he doesn't have experience.
Yeah.
Quentin Ives has not really played much, and Emmett Johnson played really well last year, and he played well in the spring game, but there is still question marks on his size. And also, I kind of downgraded the running backs a little bit because there has, over the last handful of years, there's been pressure taken off of them because we've had mobile quarterbacks. We do not have a mobile quarterback that's going to be starting this year, so there's going to be more pressure on the running backs, and I just don't know for sure because I haven't seen it yet that those guys are going to step up completely.
See, I couldn't put them that low because the room is so big. We could have 4 dudes injured and still have a decent 1-2 running back combo.
It's like we've talked about before, though. It's kind of a glass. It's not as deep as it looks because we know a couple dudes are made of glass.
Yep.
And they've got such a bad injury history.
Yeah, but not as deep as it looks. It's still pretty deep.
The injuries
But a lot
alone.
a lot of that depth has question marks on it, though.
Yeah. Or just simply there's not enough data. And so for that, I also had them last on my list. Just simply because of the fact that we don't know enough about what we have. I think that we saw some flashes of some stuff in the spring game that made me feel a lot more comfortable about it. But I feel pretty damn comfortable about the majority of these groups. And the running backs, I still have the most question about.
That's my biggest thing. The question marks that I have on the running back room. Again, I understand the depth. They
aren't even second to last on my list because I don't have that many.
Or at least the potential of what the running backs have, I agree with. But there are still too many question marks for me to feel comfortable to not have them last.
Fair enough.
Who's your 7th?
My 7th, I go to the offensive line.
Wow.
And I go to the offensive line.
I'm so confused by this.
I go to the offensive line.
We're going bottom to top.
Yeah, no,
right?
I'm fully aware.
Okay.
I have two guys in the offensive line
somewhere. I don't know
that I trust in. I trust in Ben Hart and I trust in Ben Scott.
Got it. Who'd have thought a year ago we'd be sitting here saying I trust in Ben Hart.
But I do. He played really well last year.
The only reason I trusted
He's a leader on that line.
Yep.
The only reason I would have last season would have trusted in Ben Scott was because I hadn't seen him play and because Rhule was excited by him. That would be the only reason.
Outside of those two dudes, I don't know who's going to play where, and that scares the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
It is fair.
I think that's a fair statement. I think when it comes to the offensive line, for me being this low, I feel like I know enough about how many just absolute a monstrous amount of reps these guys have gotten, live game action, that for that reason and the experience and how much an extra full off season of working together and, being more brothers and all those things and having some of that youth up there now ready to back them up. I can't put them down that low.
Reps are good. Cohesiveness to me is so important on that front five.
Agreed.
And I don't think it can be overstated that they have to be able to trust the guys around them to do their own job.
Yeah.
You can be as good as Ben Scott, and if you can't trust the two guards by your sides, you're going to get fucked.
You're not wrong.
So it's the giant question mark of, are we going to see the same five guys start every game? That I don't understand.
One of the key factors of my entire list is basically question marks. And the last four that I have offensive linemen at the top of my last four. I'm not trying to jump ahead, but I'm just saying because they just have the fewest question marks that in my personal opinion, of the other three positions. Offensive line still has question marks. I agree with you, but the other ones for myself have more question marks.
So who's your number 7?
I have linebackers at number 7. Lots of upside, but limited overall snaps. We've already talked about how we need guys like John Bullock to take up for Heinrich and Reimer that are gone. But yeah, MJ Sherman, Jevin Wright, Mekhi Bayer, Stephen Thompson. That's great. Have we seen enough of them to really be comfortable with, them being the guys? I haven't. Do I think that there's potential for them to be? Absolutely. But, even a Vincent Shavers, he's a true freshman. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about him, but I don't fucking know.
The room is small.
Again, too many question marks for myself. That's why I have them at number 7.
I don't think the room is small. And I do think we saw enough from the guys that are back there now that are now going to get the chance to step forward and be the guys. Just because of the injuries to both Heinrich and Reimer last year, they got good reps. That's when you saw Mekhi Bayer go nuts.
Yeah.
And become a guy that they almost had to, they couldn't deny Reimer and Heinrich the ability to get back on the field when they came back from injury, but they were finding ways to get Bayer on the field as much as they possibly could.
But there's also a difference between stepping in for the guy and being the guy.
I totally get it. I think John Bullock is a guy that you absolutely can count on to be a rock star back there for us this year.
I believe he can be, but until I see it, that's what my question marks are.
Yeah. Because of the things I just said, that's why they're actually my number 6, not my number 7.
Okay.
My number 7 for me is actually the DBs.
Okay.
Just simply the question marks that are there. Yes, we got all excited about Bly Hill, and it sounds like his injury is not nearly as bad as everybody expected it to be. It sounds like he's going to be probably full go by the beginning of the season. And if that's the case, cool, but we still haven't seen him play live game action. And with the other guys that are back there right now, we saw some flashes last year from some people, but we also saw some not so good things. And some of getting, like Hartzog being in one spot and not getting bounced back and forth a bunch this year, like Coop has already talked about, maybe that's going to make him a really solid player. I just think there's a lot of question marks back there. We've got a lot of guys. We've got a lot of young guys that have come in. They, we brought in 9 DBs this year?
Yeah, a lot.
9 or 10.
Yeah.
I'm a little shocked with the depth and some of the experiences coming back that you put them so low.
The reason I'm not counting the majority of the experience that came back is because, like I've said before, I was hard on Gifford last year. I think that he made some pretty key errors in some pretty key situations, and a lot of late game breakdown in our defense that cost us games at the end, not being able to get stops on third downs, things like that, came from the back end.
I don't even have Gifford in my top 3 of dudes to watch for DBs.
I get it. What I'm saying is
that's how deep that room is.
I'm going to have to see a pretty tremendous improvement, especially late in games, for me to trust them, and that's why they're my number 7.
I'll get into the defensive backs when I get to my number on that. But one of the tiebreakers for myself of putting the defensive backs higher was the experience of the 2 injured guys, specifically Marquise Buford, Deshaun Singleton, coming back. That was kind of one of my tiebreakers of that type of experience returning. But I'll get into that more a little bit later.
Sure.
Fair enough.
Who's your number 6? I already said mine.
My number 6 is running backs for a lot of the same reasons we've already talked about. Yes, there are injury problems, but I think the room is girthy enough that it won't be as big of a deal. That's all I got on running backs.
I got my number 6 is quarterbacks, mainly because you got two true freshman quarterbacks and a returning quarterback that everybody thinks should not be a quarterback.
It's starting to feel just like our top 5 show.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's my
everybody
next thing.
still thinks that? He looked good at the spring game.
Again, I'm going into the season, and that was just one scrimmage that everybody got to see.
No, it was not one scrimmage. They scrimmaged 3 times.
Again, I said that everybody got to see.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, as much as I think that those quarterbacks are going to be good, again, I'm going back to my question marks. I still have a lot of question marks on a true freshman quarterback starting. Again, I know where it's going to be Dylan, but again, we have 2 true freshman quarterbacks. Doesn't matter which one it is, I'm going to have a shit ton of question marks. And I'm also going to have question marks on a quarterback that is much maligned as Harburg is.
Yes.
I believe that they will be better, but until I see it, you guys know I'm a prove it guy. So the question marks are what the question marks are at the quarterback position. I believe that they could be much higher than this in a position group as far as the season goes on, but coming into the season, I got to put the quarterbacks towards the middle.
Fascinating.
So I have them as my number 5, my number 5 because of.
Apparently, I'm just here getting ready to. You know what? We'll get.
Nope. I'm going to give it to you. I'm just saying the quarterbacks. Are you picking quarterbacks at number 6?
No,
okay.
I'm not picking quarterbacks.
Because where I'm at with him on this is that I already said linebackers at 6 for me, but I'm at quarterbacks on 5 for most of the exact same reasons. But my biggest one is I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had one more scholarship guy in there that had some age to him. Because in my mind, we are one Dylan Raiola injury away from watching Heinrich Harburg mid-game meltdown and turn the ball over 3 times and get booed off the fucking face of the planet and lose every shred of confidence that he has and watch him turn into a shell of Jeff Sims. What'd you call him, Mr. 40%?
Mr. 40%.
Turns the ball over 40% of the time.
Fumble 40.
Yeah. That's my biggest fear. Is watching Harburg in all of his progress just go,
yeah,
because all of a sudden the moment and the spotlight's right back on him.
Yep.
And you know what that results in? Us turning to a dude who looked like a freshman. Yes, he's a 4-star quarterback recruit, but he's still a true freshman that needs the seasoning of 2 or 3 years behind somebody. And that just doesn't make me comfortable. I don't think there's anybody else out there.
So quarterbacks were your number 6 too?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Linebackers
were my number 6.
Got it. Okay. Sorry. I got a little lost on the plot on that one.
You're good.
Sorry.
So who's your number 5, Matt?
My number 5. We're going backwards, so I got to look here. My number 5 is linebackers.
Okay.
I think the experience that we'll have starting is good. I think anybody that comes in for them, I'm concerned about.
That was a lot of my question marks, basically, yeah.
How much do we trust? What's his bucket that came over from Syracuse?
Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
Not at all until I see him play.
I mean, I trust him in the fact that he knows the defense because he played under Tony White. But outside of that,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's my biggest thing here is that he was recruited and played under Tony White before.
He's on scholarship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then
He was a transfer in.
if they're allowing him to be on scholarship and they allowed him to come in to play, then I expect the coaches expect good things out of him.
That's fair. It just, I feel like of all the transfers that we have this year, he's the one that they are the most familiar with from a staff perspective, just because Tony White obviously already scouted
Literally
him and
has,
recruited him and
Yep.
has turned him into a product. Who you got at 5?
My number 5 is the offensive line. They just have too many experienced snaps. I agree with you, Matt, with what you said as far as why you had the offensive line so low, that there are still question marks as far as the cohesiveness of the players, specifically next to Ben Scott, and then helping out Ben Hart on the sides. And we still don't fully know our right tackle situation as far as whether it's Prohaska or anybody else. And even if it is Prohaska, we haven't really seen enough of Prohaska to really feel comfortable completely.
Sure. He showed flashes his freshman year, but we haven't seen anything good since.
Yeah, and even in the flashes of the freshman year was like 2.5 games.
Yeah.
So it's like, is that really something that you can nail that?
It's also 2.5 games plopped into the end of a really bad season and a really, really bad season of offensive line play.
Yeah. So
pretty much you could have gone out there and defecated and looked pretty decent compared to the rest of them.
I think that we have some good really good options.
Visual you just put in my head.
For me to put them at number 5, they just have the fewest question marks of that bottom 5 group. That's why I put them at, and again, kind of with what I said with the running backs, they have a lot of pressure on themselves because, again, one of my questions going into the season, again, that we'll talk about in the future shows, not having a running quarterback is going to put a lot of pressure on that offensive line to be better than what they have been.
Sure.
So that's why I got them at number 5.
I got to say one thing before we get into the second half of this. I like how much disparity is going on here between the three of us. I think it says that this is all really close.
I'm still confused at your tight ends at last, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I agree with what you said.
At number 5, I had the QB. So, Matt, who you got at 4?
Yeah, we already talked about your number 5. We talked about your number 5 and number 6. At number 4, I have DBs.
Okay.
The room's deep. We got some good experience coming back. Singleton's going to be there. Buford's going to be there. Tommy Hill's going to steal the ball from every person on the planet. I'm not that concerned about them. I just expect more benefit from some other.
Something that I really
areas.
love about our DB room in general is the size and the length.
Mm-hmm.
The size and the length, I think.
That's what she said.
They're girthy and long. No, I just, you hear the cliche terms of,
DBs
size shortens the field and things like that, but it truly does.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch an NBA game as opposed to a college game, or watch a WNBA game or against an NBA game, the courts look smaller.
I don't want to do
the courts look different size, and that's because you literally have length in height on the floor. And so when it comes down to it, for me, especially competing against a team like Ohio State, which I think they're going to be the bar this year in the Big Ten.
Yep.
Competing against Ohio State, and you look at the size and the speed of their wide receivers, the only way, Scott Frost famously said, the Big Ten's going to have to change for us. No, Matt Rhule's coming into Nebraska going, I want the fastest, tallest, longest guys, and I'll teach them how to play football. And that's everything that they've done. And Evan Cooper is in charge of that room, and he's the guy that Rhule trusts most to evaluate that raw talent and get that out of those guys. So I don't mind where you have them because, like you said, we all feel pretty good about the majority of the team, but that's why I had them lower. Is just the lack of experience and not really knowing where the depth is there. But I like where you got them.
I have the defensive backs at the exact same spot at number 4. When you have two of the best players on the entire defensive side of the ball with Isaac Gifford and Tommy Hill.
So you guys both got the tight ends in your top 3?
I haven't even higher than that, but yeah. But anyway, but when you have two of the best players on the entire defensive side of the ball with Tommy Hill and Isaac Gifford And then I already made the comment about how you have a Deshaun Singleton and Marquise Buford returning off of injury.
Deshaun Singleton coming back is big.
Huge. Ethan Nation building what he has built on when he was returning some kicks and then coming in spot duty last year. He had an interception in the spring game. You have Jeremiah Charles that the coaching staff just completely strokes themselves over constantly, who might be, if Bly Hill is not able to start the season, it sounds like it might be a Jeremiah Charles who is switching over from wide receiver to defensive back, and they feel so comfortably with somebody like that coming in and being the guy right away.
Sounds like he's kind of a Tommy Hill 2.0.
Yeah.
Which, that's pretty
I'm okay with.
exciting.
I hope that they fight each other for the ball.
The depth of
through whoever they're trying to tackle.
The depth, the amount of guys that they have in that position. I know a big chunk of them are true freshmen that probably won't see much of the field, but still, the depth that they have at that position and the top level talent that they have there, I had to put them in my top 4.
It's pretty tremendous. My number 4. Can you guys guess?
I wasn't really paying attention to as far as who you have left.
So I went running backs, DBs, LBs, QBs. Next one for me is wide receiver.
Okay.
At number 4, I've got wide receiver simply because we don't know enough about the entire room. Yes, we brought in 2 what should be absolute stud upperclassmen. One of them has similar injury concerns to what we see out of our glass house in our running back room in Naor.
He's and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda
and IGC, who we haven't really heard talked about at all this spring.
Well, he didn't do anything in the spring, but
So for me, it's one of those things where I think we have a lot of top end talent. Malachi Coleman, does he come back from that shoulder surgery and look perfect again? I think Jalen Lloyd is going to be an absolute stud, and if I had to pick somebody right now that isn't one of the 2 newcomers, it'd be Jalen Lloyd probably, that I expect to have what I would consider a breakout, 300-400 yard season, at least for a guy who's a sophomore. But I don't know enough about them. I think there's a lot of talent there, and I trust them. I think Garrett McGuire is obviously a very tremendous recruiter. I think he relates to the guys really well. Haven't seen enough top end performance out of the wide receiver room to call him a good coach yet, from a ability standpoint. But that's just kind of where I am with the wide receivers. I'm confident in them. I don't think they're a super high end strength of ours.
By the way, before we go into our top 3, you said you want to guess who I have it for. I'm gonna probably guess that we all have the same number 1.
Yeah.
If we don't, one of us fucked up.
Yeah.
We're just gonna take 5 minutes and I'll blow them at the end because that's pretty much all we can do. Is
I think number 1 is pretty freaking obvious.
Yeah.
But Matt, who's number 3?
my number 3 is the quarterback room.
Okay.
All praise Dylan Raiola is all I can really say to that.
Talent wise, I get it.
Talent is there. The only reason they aren't higher is because of the fact that it's a small room, and he's a young guy.
Yep.
But god damn it, do I think he's going to do great things.
Totally understand.
Number 3. Jed?
Mine is what you had, BJ, what you had at number 4, wide receivers. I totally agree with you as far as how we haven't necessarily seen enough, but just the insane size and talent and speed that is all across the board on the wide receiver list. I think what we saw from a Ja'Cory Barney as a true freshman in the spring game just elevates them. Like, I think if we wouldn't have seen, and I'm not trying to put this all on one guy, I think if we wouldn't have seen what Ja'Cory Barney did in the spring game, I probably would have had them not drastically lower, but maybe 1 or 2 spots lower.
Yeah.
But having a young guy like that added to a Jalen Lloyd, and again, like you said, Malachi Coleman being healthy, and bringing in a guy like Jamal Banks with his type of experience, I think just helps it so much more. It kind of was a little bit of a tiebreaker as far as between wide receiver and defensive backs, in my opinion, as to why I put them in the top 3.
How much do you factor who's getting them the ball into this decision?
Oh, that definitely helps.
I think
Yeah.
they're even higher now because of that.
That's part of it for me.
100%.
I think
The
they'd
way
probably
that
be 5 or 6 if I wasn't counting on Dylan Raiola actually being able to deliver balls.
and not just the quarterback delivering the balls, but the way that the offense is going to be what Satterfield actually wants it to be.
Hopefully.
So it's a little bit of combination of both those. That is absolutely a factor as to why I have the wide receivers a little bit higher. Your number 3?
My number 3 is the tight ends.
Okay.
For me, I don't trust Thomas Fidone, just simply because
That's why they were so low.
for me, like I said, and I was a harsh critic of his last year.
Rightfully.
I just don't know. Like I when I look at it all, I think I kind of identified in the spring game what it is that I don't like about the way that he catches a ball. I think
when it hits the ground, is that the problem?
no, it's actually when it hits his hand. It's actually when it hits his hands
And bounces off?
yeah. He almost looks like a guy who has like hard hands,
Skillets?
and
cricket bats.
there's no soft catch to the ball at all. It doesn't matter how it's thrown. I blamed it on a lot on the quarterbacks last year. Harburg would get in there, especially for his first couple games. He was throwing the ball as hard as he possibly could.
It was like he was
try and get
pitching
it to
the
go
ball.
straight.
Yeah.
And I blamed some of the balls that just bounced off his chest last year on that. But I watched him catch that first swing out pass that he caught from Dylan Raiola, where he, zigged and zagged up for about 12 yards to kick off the spring game. That looked great after he secured the ball. But even just a simple out like that right there, he catches that like he's got bones for hands. It's like the ball rattles around in his hands before he secures it, and then he heads up field. I don't know if it's just that he hasn't quite grown into his body yet. He hasn't quite figured it out, everything. But that's for that reason alone, I've got them down a little bit because I do think it's a deep room. I think we've seen enough out of Borkature. What's his name? Lindemeyer. I think he showed some flashes. That little lean back, like half sideways scoop that he basically went bowling with and caught that ball and still athletically made a play. You got some athletic freaks in that room, and I'm not even.
You add before you even do the Carter Nelson.
That's what I was about to say. I haven't even talked about Carter Nelson at all.
But currently, as we sit here right now, the fourth tight end, that Isaiah Smith Flores, who caught that acrobatic reach way back.
That's what I was just talking about.
No, that wasn't Lindemeyer. That was
I thought
Isaiah
it was Lindemeyer.
Smith Flores. But Lindemeyer is also still a very good tight end too. He's been playing well. But you have a young kid like Isaiah or Ishmael Smith Flores, that is doing well, and then you add in the Carter Nelson. But yeah,
even if Carter Nelson's not in that room, I trust the room.
Yep,
I think they do a good job, and I think it's going to be excellent to have Satterfield coaching those tight ends like he was supposed to be last year. They've already, like, unprompted talked about how different it is to have the guy who's game planning in the room with them, teaching them how they fit into the offense specifically. I don't know what was going on with the analyst that got made a tight ends coach last year, but it was pretty clear from the
Josh Martin.
Yeah, it was pretty clear from the get that he knew this was a 1-year deal.
Oh, yeah.
We just don't have the ability to go out and get somebody else. And he was a previous tight ends coach. So it's not like he was bad at his job, but I just think that...
And he's still here. They just moved him back down to the analyst.
Back to analyst. Well, and who knows what's going to happen midsummer when all of a sudden it's unlimited coaches.
Yep.
But
a lot of what you said is why I still have not said my tight ends as we go into the top 2. So.
That's fair.
I don't know. I don't trust any of them to catch the ball near as much as you guys do. And blocking tight ends are great, but those are practically just linemen to me.
Yeah.
So
number 2 for you, Matt.
Number 2 is the wide receiver room. We got speed. We got size. We got decent depth.
Amen.
And most of all, we got fucking speed.
Amen.
And so...
Have you said speed yet?
No, but they are really fucking fast.
Amen.
And I think
And we have a guy to get them the ball.
And we got a guy to get them the ball. They're all just getting started.
Hallelujah.
We're going to have some impressive wide receivers this year.
Yep. Pass me the Kool-Aid, brother. Pass me the Kool-Aid.
Do you want this shitty tasting Kool-Aid right here?
Hell no. No.
Vegas, if you're listening, I don't know how you do this.
I like everything you just said. I just don't know enough about him. That's why I had him at 4 for me.
Yep. And I had him at 3. So, I mean, realistically, it was 2, 3, and 4 as far as wide receiver.
And four for me, even though that's down there. That's like, I think, especially this top 5-ish, 6 of mine.
They're all
really fucking
all of these have been really close together outside of the tight end.
It sounds like you had them at 4 because of kind of what I had towards the bottom as far as question marks. You have the upside up there for the wide receivers. You just still have question marks to drop them down.
If you were going to ask me, outside of Dylan Raiola specifically, who I thought had the biggest upside of any of these groups, it's the wide receiver group.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because if Dylan Raiola plays like a superstar, we could have a couple 500, 600, 700 plus yard receivers on this team.
If Dylan Raiola plays slightly above adequate, we could have everything you just said.
Yeah. I think
talented receivers.
I think the floor, I have no idea what the floor is, and that's why I put him at 4. I think the ceiling could be the highest of any group on the team.
The floor is we have one of our non-scholarship quarterbacks starting. That's the floor.
Well, and we wind up with non-scholarship wide receivers catching passes.
Yeah. My number 2 is the tight ends, mainly because, and I'm just going off of, let's assume the tight ends come in the way that they are as far as with the guys on the roster and the recruits. So I'm just going to
Putting Carter Nelson in there.
I put Carter Nelson in there.
Okay.
The talent level, this is the first spring and summer and going into the fall that Thomas Fidone is not rehabbing an injury. The talent is obviously still there. Clearly, everybody across the country still wants him to transfer to them because, that's been brought up.
Yeah.
So clearly, the respect of his type of talent is still there. I agree with all the, what we've seen is highly questionable, but at the same time, the talent level is still there. And I think that
Aren't you a prove it guy?
I am, but the talent just overtakes a lot of that.
I am, but not on tight end.
He's over here like,
No.
He's like, I can ignore it for Thomas Faboni hands.
The overall
You've been
talent
working on that one, haven't you?
the overall talent level, when you add in Carter Nelson and his talent, Thomas Fidone, his talent, and what we've been able to see of the growth of Borkacher, specifically those 3 guys specifically, the talent just kind of is a tiebreaker. I mean, it just overtakes so much because they are so fucking talented. And also, you made the comment, having your offensive coordinator be the tight ends coach. I talked about that going into the spring game. How much is that going to help out the tight ends? Maybe subliminally at the very least, where he might call a handful of more plays. I think that the upside for the talent that we have at tight end with the play caller calling plays, I think is just going to elevate them that much more. That's why I have them at 2.
I'm with you on that. I think Satterfield being there at 2 is also going to, not that he probably thinks this way at all. He does seem like a pretty humble dude, but like, he's going to also have a little bit more emphasis and focus on what the tight ends are doing because he's coaching them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he does have a couple more plays a game that are specific to, hey, this is for a fucking tight end. Like, let's get out here and get this done.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
I don't know.
Who's your number 2?
My number 2, the only ones left other than the D-line, who is obviously number 1.
The who? What?
Yeah, what?
I thought we were all going to say it together. Come on.
I was gonna have the audience guess who was left.
Guys,
We're going to have a bouncing ball and the whole thing.
Guys, I'm going to say this, and you might shit your pants, but I haven't said offensive line yet.
Yeah. You're right. Now that you say that.
It's well documented. I mean, there are over 100 episodes out there on the interwebs of me talking about how Bryce Benhart's not a tackle, and Bryce Benhart shouldn't play football, and how Bryce Benhart sucks so bad that he probably can't even actually suck dick. I don't even know.
Wow.
But I was completely corrected and got almost a hard-on for the guy last year, to the point that between him and Ben Scott coming back and the just abundance of behemoth talent that we now have at any level on that
experience
line. I was just going to say, coupled with the amount of snaps, in-game reps that those guys have all seen. Matt Rhule is a guy that he said one of the first things in his, absolute Viagra of a speech that he gave that day that we were sitting in the stadium watching him on the Jumbotron, watching him his introductory press conference. He talked about how we needed trenches. We need to start in the trenches and build out. Harbaugh just won the Natty up with Michigan. Fuck Michigan. But he just won the national championship, and his biggest philosophy is you build the trenches and you build the rest of the team after that.
Yep.
He did it, he could have taken a sexy pick in the top of the draft, but he didn't. He went and did the smart move and took the lineman that he needed. those things are the most, in my opinion. We talk about this a lot. How when I watch a football game, typically I'm watching the lines.
Yep.
I see the end of the play with the skill players. I get it, but I'm typically watching the lines, and I'm so excited about how strong our offensive line is going to be this year. How much more in shape they are. How they've gotten a whole extra season of seasoning under Coach Riola, who is coaching the exact way that Matt Rhule wants his offensive line to be coached. And Rhule's success everywhere he's gone has included a high-end offensive line. And so for that, I really think we're going to see the offensive line, every single guy across there, take a bigger step forward this year than they did last year. I also think that, yes, you made the point earlier that I want to see cohesiveness. I need to see those 5 guys starting. I don't know that cohesiveness, I think that's huge, even bigger in the NFL, especially with a smaller roster. But I think that this coaching staff has proven that they can rotate guys and get the maximization out of them. And I think that we're going to see, because there are bodies available, we're not going to see a cohesive unit of 5 dudes playing constantly. We're going to see a nice rotation, and we're going to see a lot of fresh bodies.
I don't know, man. Maybe it'll work.
I think we'll see cohesiveness in the mindset.
In the mindset, 100%.
Okay.
Because
That's what we have to have.
There's a singular style of coaching.
Yes.
There's one voice, and there's great leadership.
One set of players for each position.
Yes, that's the
You don't
that's
have
the
guys
depth that I was
bouncing
talking
around.
about. That's the depth that I was talking about, and we had a good recruiting class last year, and then we've added a good recruiting class this year that's not going to have to play. If they have to play, that means that we've lost some serious injuries. And I like the depth. I really, really like the returning experience that we have. I don't care where guys wind up lining up. I know who's at center and I know who's at right tackle. Outside of that, I trust the guys to play that are going to be the best to be in there for any given series. I'm excited about it.
The second most important position on the line is the left guard. I need more answers.
I can't argue.
He has to protect our Ferrari that's in the garage. That's what it is.
I get it. Who's your number 2?
I already.
We already talked about it.
Oh, yeah, you already did.
No, this is number 1. Now
we're on number 1.
Before we say the obvious, everybody that's listening or watching, please send us your ranking of the positions. And if you don't have our number 1 as number 1, you did it wrong.
You did it totally wrong.
It's just
drop in the comments if for some asinine reason you don't have defensive line.
I have notes after each one of them, and on defensive line, the only thing I have is duh.
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 Well, but I mean, it obviously starts with Ty and the polar bear.
Yeah.
Those are your 2 mainstays that we absolutely know, but then you have Prince Will and Lenhart and Butler, and I mean, the list goes on, and there's other guys that are
Prince Will and Cameron. And
that's what, yeah. There's going to be so many guys this year that are vying for time that are just that should be on the field to get that look.
Yep.
Yeah.
I pray that we don't lose anybody to a transfer portal in the fall simply because there's not enough room.
Well, there is no transfer portal until after the season's over.
Whatever.
Prayers answered, buddy.
I'm just saying, we won't, so that's good.
Good.
Yeah, no, the D-line is going to just fuck people up this year.
Yeah.
Get excited.
James Williams. I mean, we can just keep naming guys that are going to just wreck shop the entire fucking season. And if God forbid, if somebody gets injured, I feel very comfortable with whoever's coming in after them.
The only real questions that I have are if Ty Robinson and Hutmacher would go down, both be down. I think that could leave a pretty
both is a different conversation.
Pretty sizable depth issue in the middle of that front. But who knows, man? The way that they've allowed both of those guys to get a little trimmer this year, I just don't know if they're even really going to care who's playing where on that front.
I mean, I understand.
We're not going to have a traditional nose tackle this year.
If both go down, but we could say that with every position. If Dylan Rail goes down, then obviously all of these conversations is if the top guys go down, then things change. Well,
yeah, if a meteor strikes our entire offense, we're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
No, but see, I put the running backs all the way down at 8 for me because of the glass house that is there.
I had the running back, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that the injuries that are all the way down there, If I was just to look at it without thinking about injury or injury history whatsoever, running backs probably wouldn't be last on my list.
I don't know that they would be last, but they wouldn't be in the top half.
I have to factor it.
I already see what you're doing. The only way that you can knock the D-line down is getting into what ifs. And that's our next show.
Hey, we appreciate you guys. Those that have stuck around, if you haven't already, subscribe. Give us a shout in the comments. Let us know what you thought about this show. And
tell a friend.
Tell us what your list is. We'll catch you on the next one.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.